There you go. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the LAFCO meeting here on Monday, June 6th. I'd like to welcome everyone here today, a bright and early Monday morning. Before we get going, I'll call the meeting to order, and can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Salas? Commissioner Salas is absent. Commissioner Desmond?
Here.
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Here.
Commissioner Willis?
Here.
Commissioner Vanderland?
Present.
Commissioner McNamara? Commissioner McNamara is absent. Commissioner Kate is absent. And for the record, Commissioner Kate will be on virtual approximately at 9:30. Alternate Commissioner Becker?
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Vargas is absent. Alternate Commissioner Von Wilpert is absent. Alternate Commissioner Drake?
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Mathis?
Present.
So alternate Commissioner Becker will vote in place of Commissioner McNamara and Salas, who is absent. There is a quorum.
You can only vote for one, right? As the alternate, not for both?
Yes, although,
Okay.
so if one shows up, Commissioner Becker will still be voting unless both Salas and McNamara attend.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Commissioner Drake, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's supposed to be on this side. That would have been
Well,
great.
they couldn't decide what.
Former
it's
Boy
supposed to be
Scout.
on.
Yeah, well, okay. We're off to a great start. First,
Okay, first thing we want to get into here is the agenda review. Keen, do you have any updates or changes for today's agenda?
I do, so thank you, Chair, and good morning, Commissioners and attendees. And just for the record, Keith Simons, the Executive Officer. So we do have one change to the agenda itself in terms of placement. At the advice of Council, we would like its staff to move out of order 5G as in girl. That is the request to take up the findings necessary to proceed with a hybrid meeting today. So if after the agenda review, if we could just take up that item by roll call, everything else in the agenda then can stay in place. So with that, we are good to go.
Okay, thank you, Keen. And do we have any commissioners or any updates or changes they want to make to the agenda, either in person or online? Hearing none. Okay, then at Keen's recommendation here, Tammy, could you, let's see, somebody want to make a motion for 5G?
I'll move to approve 5G.
Okay, motion by Commissioner McKenzie and second by Commissioner Willis. Tammy, could I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Desmond?
No.
Commissioner Vanderland?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Kate? I'm sorry, is absent. Commissioner McNamara is absent. Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis?
Aye.
Commissioner Salas?
Yes.
Alternate Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
We have 7 in favor, 1 opposed. The motion passes.
All right, Tammy, thank you very much. Okay, first off today, we've got a presentation this morning from the San Diego County Water Authority. We have Sandy Curl. She's a general manager for the Water Authority. She's going to give us an update on the state of water within the County of San Diego. So Sandy, the floor is yours. Welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here today. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about water in San Diego County. It's a really hot topic at the moment, and so appreciate the opportunity to give you a little bit of information. And Du's just pulling up the presentation. Myself and Kelly Gage, Director of Water Resources, will tag team the presentation this morning, and so as soon as you're ready to go, Du, next slide. So the San Diego County Water Authority serves 24 member agencies, 3.3 million people, and a $240 billion economy. We have the pleasure of having the chair of LAFCO on our board of directors, as well as one of the commissioners, Chris Cate. We provide service to all agencies. We have a board of 36 members and 24 member agencies that we provide water to in the region. Next slide. So I get this question a lot: is San Diego prepared for drought? And so let me just hit it head on. So over the past 3 decades, we have been preparing for the moment that we're at today, which is a very critical drought situation in California, as well as most of the Southwest. We've done this through hardwiring conservation in San Diego County. Water use efficiency is a way of life. We've done it through our Conserve Colorado River supplies, which are highly reliable. And as of 2015, we brought on drought resilient supply of the Carlsbad desalination plant. And finally, our region's supplies are now reliable in even multi-dry years out to the year 2045. Next slide. So we have not always been in this situation. In the early 90s, we suffered a cutback of 31% for 13 months due to a severe drought that started in the late 80s, and local leaders came together and said, we never want to be in this situation again. And thankfully now running out of water in San Diego County is not an issue. And that can't be said in all parts of the state or the Southwest. Next slide. Today, our region is recognized as a national leader in strategic planning for water supply and infrastructure management. What we learned is that no single resource strategy can solve the water reliability issues. And so we've diversified. We've taken a portfolio approach. And thanks to the strategic investment in seawater desalination, water storage, and infrastructure projects, we've reduced our dependence on imported supply. And this supply diversification was the result of 3 decades of planning. It ensures that even during tough times, our water is available when it's needed. And this is really what your water bills are paying for in San Diego County. So let's take a look at a few of these investments. Next slide. The San Vicente dam raise is important because it increased our region's ability to store water if imported supplies are cut off during an emergency or hydraulic conditions with supply shortages. The San Vicente Dam was raised, the height of the dam by 117 feet, and it makes it the tallest dam raise of this type in the world. The added height more than doubled the capacity of the original reservoir, adding 157,000 acre-feet of water to the reservoir. And 1 acre-foot equals about the size of a football field, 1 foot deep, just for those who like a visual on the numbers. The dam raise was completed in 2014 and is a key component of the Water Authority Emergency and Carryover Storage Program. Next slide. So desal, the Claude Bud Lewis Carlsbad desalination plant is now a landmark public-private partnership project that meets approximately 10% of the water demands in San Diego region. With private developer Poseidon, they built the plant along with a 10-mile conveyance pipeline to deliver desalinated water to the Water Authority's aqueduct system. The plant delivers nearly 50 million gallons of fresh drinking water to county residences and businesses. And this is a project that I worked on heavily, and it is the only plant of its size and nature in North America. Next slide. One of our most important investments, and maybe the most overlooked, is our conserved water supplies from Imperial County. In 2003, the Water Authority and 5 other signatories completed a historic set of agreements called the Quantification Settlement Agreements. The key components are conserved water is transferred through agreements from the Imperial Irrigation District. On-farm conservation practices, saving that water is transferred long-term to San Diego County. In addition, we line portions of the All-American and Coachella Canal, and the water saved from that is transferred under long-term agreements to the San Diego region. This supply provides about 280,000 acre-feet of water annually to the region, and is about half of our total water supply needs on an annual basis. And this high priority supplies are our lowest cost supplies and critical to balancing the cost of higher priced water such as desal and potable reuse. Next slide. So at the Water Authority, we focused on increasing local water supplies and decreasing dependence on imported water from outside the region. This is critical to creating a reliable water supply as well as managing costs. We've successfully grown our San Diego water sources to provide 31% of total water supply from local resources. And we use less than 1% water from the State Water Project that brings water from Sacramento, San Joaquin Bay Delta from Northern California. Again, this has been due to our 30 years of strategic planning and investment for the region's water supply. It has transformed us into really one of the most drought resilient in the nation. Next slide. So here you can see the results of this 3 decades of work of where we were in 1991, where we were in 2021, and where we anticipate to be in 2045. The new increment of water coming on is potable reuse water that our member agencies are working on, including the City of San Diego, the East County Purification Project headed up by Padre Dam, and then a project that just came online, the Oceanside Pure Water Project that came online in March of this year. With this diversification strategy as our backdrop, I'd like to turn it over to Kelly Gage, our Director of Water Resources, who will discuss past and current drought actions and how our resiliency has helped us to navigate in dry years. Kelly?
Thank you, Sandy, and good morning, Chair Desmond and Commissioners. Thanks again for having us here today. So I'm Kelly Gage, the Director of Water Resources. I've been with the Water Authority since 2001. And I participated on many of the projects that Sandy just went through, so was there during this pretty intensive investment period for the Water Authority, and has brought us the resilience we do see today. So what I'd like to do is walk through how does that resilience back us up now through the drought periods that we're experiencing. And recall that 1990s drought was when we were 95% reliant. You can see up there on the upper left, nearly all yellow circle, was the majority of the water was from Metropolitan Water District and reliance on the State Water Project. And as Sandy mentioned, we're now down to less than 1% of reliance on the State Water Project. And you'll see that when we talk about the current drought today and the 5% allocation on the State Water Project and why San Diego is so insulated. If you could go to the next slide. One more. So I want to talk about how this resiliency has helped us in the past drought to really kind of showcase what this has done for us. So in the 2012 through 2016 drought, in May 2015, the State Board issued an emergency regulation that required a 25% cutback statewide, that's aggregated statewide cutback in water use. This resulted in member agencies, our 24 member agencies, to have reduction targets between 12% and 36%. And this reduction did not consider local supply conditions. So all of those projects that Sandy just mentioned were not considered, and the availability of those drought resilient supplies. Then 9 months later, in February of 2015, the regulation was amended to allow adjustments for new drought resilient supplies, as our Carlsbad desalination plant just came online in December of 2015, so just that previous year. So we did get certification of the desalination plant, and this reduced the member agency targets to between 8% and 28%. Next slide. So obviously that still wasn't good enough for us, still having those high level of water use cutbacks with all the investments we made. So we advocated pretty rigorously with Sacramento and with the state board, and then the regulation was amended again to allow this self-certification, or what we call a stress test. So the state allowed us to look at the individual conservation standards of each of the agencies based on a unique supply and demand condition. So it was determined by projecting supplies and demands for the next 3 years, 2017, 2018, and 2019 as dry years. And then you looked at your supplies based on the hydrology for the previous 3 years, 13, 14, and 15. And then your demands on potable use was for 2013 and 2014. And then the conservation standard based on the shortage levels would be for that outlying dry year, that third dry year in 2019 that you would have to apply if there were any shortages. I'm happy to say that because of these investments, San Diego's region stress test showed no shortages at all, and those mandates for cuts were lifted from San Diego County region. So none of those mandates were ever implemented within the region because of these investments that we've made in storage in the Carlsbad desalination plant. Next slide. And I think it's important to note that our water savings continue into the current drought. And this will be important when I talk about the next few slides. So if you look at the slides here, that dark bar on the left is the 1990s drought. That was our water use at the time that the first 1990s drought hit. And you can see on the far right that light blue bar where we are in 2021. And you can see right next to it is the 2015, just to the left of that is the 2015 bar. And our water use is actually lower than when we came out of the last drought. So this really shows that this is an ethic, a conservation ethic has taken hold here in San Diego. We've dropped our water use, we've stayed there since the last drought. And if you can go to the next slide. So this current drought, I'm going to switch gears to what's happening today. And in November of 2020, the governor directed state agencies to prepare for possible dry conditions in 2021. Then April 2021 through October of that year, he issued multiple drought emergency proclamations that then covered the whole state. And it declared a statewide emergency and it authorized the State Water Resources Control Board to prepare emergency regulations to prohibit wasteful water practices, and that was adopted in January of 2022. It also directed water suppliers to activate our water shortage contingency plans. These were required in the legislation of 2018 for all water suppliers to prepare these plans, and it has 6 levels. Each of the plans are similar in that they have 1 through 6, and this declared everybody move into level 1, which the Water Authority and our 24 member agencies did move into for voluntary conservation. And then in July of 2021, the governor issued Executive Order N-10-21, and again, this was for the voluntary 15% reduction from water use from 2020 levels. Now recall, I said our water demands didn't bounce back from the last drought, so looking at our water use in 2021 over 2020 is going to be a difficult task to prove, because taking 15% lower than what it was for the previous year and already maintaining those low water levels would be very difficult for us to achieve 15% in this region. So next slide. So this latest executive order, it was signed by the governor on March 28th of this year. The key provisions in this order directed the State Water Board to consider adopting emergency regulations that require water suppliers to submit, this is a new tool by the state, the annual water supply and demand assessment, a preliminary draft by June 1st, which we've done, all of our member agencies, and the Water Authority did that last week, and then a final version by July 1st. We implement level 2 demand actions in our water shortage contingency plans, and then ban irrigation of non-functional commercial, industrial, and institutional turf. That's that ornamental turf that you see that are in strips that are not really used for any active activities. So this doesn't apply to sports fields, picnic areas, things that are active use. So it's just that ornamental turf. Next slide. So the State Water Board did adopt emergency regulations per the governor's order, and on May 24th they signed the final regulation. And again, by June 10th, water suppliers must implement just the demand reduction level in level 2 for the water shortage contingency plans, bans irrigation of that non-functional CII turf, and then requires the annual water supply and demand assessment to be submitted to the state by the final by July 1st. Next slide. So what do these state regulations mean for San Diego? What the regulation does not do, it does not require formal activation of level 2. Remember how I said those plans have 6 levels? We're currently in level 1. We can stay there. We just need to reach down into our level 2 and pull up those demand management actions. So a lot of our member agencies and the Water Authority have selected to stay at that level 1 and just implement those level 2 demand measures. We have about 3 or 4 of our member agencies that have activated their level 2. And again, this is just on the ground, what are your conditions telling you to do, and how do you want to implement these demand management measures. It does not require an actual reduction of 20% or 10 to 20%. It's just the governor wants to see us move the needle in terms of conservation, and so that's what we're trying to do here in San Diego. Again, the banning of the non-functional CII turf, it allows exemption for low water use turf if you can demonstrate that. It did implement a fine of up to $500 a day, but the enforcement is at the discretion of the water supplier. And this is really to have them reach out to those CII customers and educate them on the use of ornamental turf and maybe try to find ways to move that over to some drought-tolerant landscaping. Next slide. So across California, this 5% allocation in the state water project has hit regions differently. But because the Water Authority has diversified our supplies and have removed our demands on the state water project, it's not hitting our region so badly. But in parts of the metropolitan service area, they are experiencing a water shortage, a real water shortage. And if you look at this map on the slide here, they're depicted in the orange shading on the map, and these are the areas that Metropolitan has declared a water emergency, and those areas that are the state water project only areas. And so MET's system can only deliver state water project to those areas, and of course with the 5% allocation, that's proving difficult. And so in April, Metropolitan declared the water shortage. And then based on MWD's most recent estimates, it will not be able to meet about 203,000 acre feet of the demands in these areas having just that 5% state water project allocation. MET plans to request about 144,000 acre feet of human health and safety supplies from the state to help meet demands in its state water project exclusive areas, but there will still be a supply gap. So that's why the board at Metropolitan also adopted an emergency water conservation program. And this program includes 2 compliance paths for those agencies in the state water project exclusive areas, and that's shown on the right-hand side of the slide here. So path 1 requires local agencies to adopt resolutions limiting outdoor watering to 1 day per week by last week, June 1st. So that's already been implemented for those agencies that selected this. Additionally, the impacted agencies must submit enforcement plans for Metropolitan's approval. And then through path 2, again starting last week, June 1, agencies must manage their demands within their supply allocations, or kind of their budget, if you will, water budget, those volumetric limits of MET's available state water storage project storage, plus their share of the human health and supplies from the state. If agencies exceed their monthly volumetric limits, they'll be assessed a $2,000 an acre foot penalty. So the 6 agencies that are affected under Metropolitan could select one of these 2 paths, and 3 of the agencies has selected the volumetric limits. 2 have opted for a 1 day per week, and then 1 is allowing its member agencies to select either option. So, but those have all been implemented as of June 1st, and then Metropolitan is going to monitor this, and if conditions warrant, it may ban all non-essential outdoor irrigation starting on September 1st. So next slide. So switching back to our region in San Diego, with level 2 demand reduction measures in place, we've been responding again to the governor's call for conservation by conducting outreach to ensure that our region is compliant while having enough water supplies and understands the need for continuing efficiency in our region. The Water Authority is working cooperatively with Metropolitan and DWR and our local agencies to promote water-saving actions and opportunities, and here you can see a couple of the examples. On the left, we've got partnership with Metropolitan on the right, with DWR and the Save Our Water campaigns, so some co-branding there. So among the resources we're promoting are water smart checkups for homes, businesses, and of course rebates for replacing turf grass with low water landscapes. So this concludes my portion, and I'm going to turn it back over to Sandy to finish out.
Thanks, Kelly. If we can go to the next slide, just a couple things to wrap up. Our diversified portfolio approach was recently highlighted at Yale Environmental 360. The article notes San Diego perhaps the best example of what cities are doing to make themselves drought-proof and continue business as usual in the face of deep water uncertainty. Next slide. And in October, the New York Times article outlined how our region's decades of planning and investments in new supplies have safeguarded us from the drought. As the New York Times puts it, try every approach to getting water has emerged as a model for cities. And also last June, the Wall Street Journal reported on our investments in supply reliability. Next slide. The San Diego Union Tribune in April of 2021 had this cartoon that we're pretty proud of, really calling us the poster child for readiness in drought. Next slide. So please stay in touch with us. We appreciate the opportunity to share what's happening. Water is essential for the quality of life and the economic activity of San Diego County, and we're proud to be able to support that with the work of the Water Authority. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, thanks, Sandy and Kelly. Really appreciate okay, I got you, Barry. Appreciate your, okay, thank you. Appreciate your input and great presentation. And for, you're right, San Diego is a county, and San Diego County Water Authority is a great example of putting heads together and reducing water usage and many, many resources. I was kind of looked at San Diego County, the faucet's at one end of the tub and the drain is at the other, and we're the drain, but they've done, over the last 3 decades, a fantastic job with all the diversity and water usage. I get that question asked a lot, is, what about water? It's, nobody wants any new housing next to them, they go to water right away, but you've done a great job in that conservation effort and the supply, so appreciate that. So, I understand Barry has a question. So, Barry, you want to go ahead, and then I'll go to other commissioners as well, if you want to either show me, if you could help me with the Zoomers that are on there that have questions, and we can get to those as well. Thanks.
Actually, I have a couple questions. First one, I guess either Sandy or Kelly could answer it, whichever. Where do you see the rates going in the next 3 years per linear foot? That's number one. And number two, from your member agencies when they're purchasing the fund, where do you see the rates going? And number two is from my own general knowledge, what's the total annual budget for Water Authority? Did you give me that?
Sure. So in terms of rates and charges, the cost of water has been increasing. We're seeing that slow up versus other agencies that are making those investments or about to make those investments now. And we have done everything possible to control those costs. Particularly one of our largest costs is MWD. We were successful in getting them to reduce their rate increase next year from 8% to 5%. So a lot of work on behalf of our MWD delegates at the Metropolitan Board. The budget for the Water Authority for 2 years is $1.7 billion. And 92% of that expense is purchase of water, treatment of water, and debt service on capital improvement programs. Our operating costs are 7% of that total budget.
I was just going to clarify, so you're seeing about a 5% increase
Yes.
in the next couple few years?
This next year, we're looking at just under a 5% increase. Our board will consider adopting the rates for calendar year 23 in June, and that rate increase is just under 5%.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Drake.
Thank you, Chair. First, thank you both for being here, because if we have any duty at all, it's to keep the lines of communications open about these issues. I have 2 interlocking questions. Our good friend Alex Tardy from NOAA briefed the COU and I think the CSDA within the last 6 weeks about the anticipation of what's going to happen in the watershed of the Colorado River. And we have finally hit the 1,200-year drought level. So far back, there weren't even any attorneys back then. So we're just to make an observation. Okay. And so that we're not just playing football, we're playing a whole league. And without the Colorado River having sufficient precipitation, I honestly don't know what our plan is going to be at that point, which leads to the second question, which is the use of potable reuse, which I feel very strongly in favor of. And something I predicted about 3 years ago, eventually we're going to start to have a fight over the supply of wastewater. It's finally happening now between the East County and the city of San Diego, who both say that's our sewage. And so that's an unresolved issue, and I don't think that there is any riparian right anybody has on wastewater. And so it's based on who touched it last. And here's the Water Authority, to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys don't have any toe in the water of any wastewater anywhere. And so in fact, we have a county-wide issue of the management of wastewater for an effective potable reuse. And I'm looking at the two people who are most in the middle of all this. So between Alex Tardy and the drought and the wastewater fight on the other side, where's the narrow path between those two?
There's a lot to unpack in that.
Oh, I know. I'm sorry.
Let me start first by, yes, the predictions from Alex Tardy and what we're seeing on the Colorado River is something that we've not seen, and it is very critical. In terms of our water that we get from the Colorado River, we created that water through conservation. We have high priority rights to that water. It's priority 3. In the event of cutbacks to California, those cutbacks come to MWD. In the event that IID's rights get cut back, we are 6.5% of their total allocation of Colorado River water. And so our allocation of 280,000 acre feet would be cut back up to that 6.5%. So that's not to say that we're not concerned. It's not to say that we're not part of working on the solutions of how to better utilize the water out of the Colorado River, encouraging folks to do the types of things that we did through conservation practices, conservation, and all of that. With regard to the potable reuse, the County Water Authority, and through Kelly and her staff, have been instrumental in moving the regulations forward to allow potable reuse to be done, and we're also working on the next part of it, which is direct potable reuse, which would reduce the cost of doing these projects significantly. The Water Authority does not have any rights to or involvement in wastewater. There's a myriad of issues to work through. I see our agencies doing that. The challenge also is that potable reuse projects are very expensive as well. They're along the cost of desal. And so there's that balance. Like, you wouldn't want 100% of desal as your water supply because you couldn't afford it. It's the same thing with potable reuse. And you have to have something to reuse, right? So you have to have an original source of water to be able to use potable reuse. So it's all intertwined. It's very complicated and interesting, and we're working through it. Kelly?
I think that covers it.
Power to it.
All right, well, thank you, Commissioner. I don't see any other hands up. I have a couple of questions. I think it's great. There's the state water project. We're only relying on that. You say we used to be 95%, I guess, in the early 90s, and now we're down to less than 1%. How much water usage are we, over that same period of time? I don't know if you have that. Are we using 30% less than we did then, or what's the number about the reduction that we've come?
We're using less than 40% of the water that we used in 1990
We're using
today.
less than, so is that a 60% cutback from
Um,
1990? That's
yeah.
kind of where I'm going.
So on the state water project itself,
Just our water usage.
our water usage.
Our water usage in San Diego County.
yeah, so our total water use is down 43% since
Okay.
1990. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And then I had a question about the Colorado River, where it showed we had 69% of we're reliable 69% on the Colorado River. How much of that is actually water taken you know, I know we have excess water that we get from the Imperial Valley because of the canals and whatever fallowing and things like that. And then from the other, I guess the All-American and Coachella canals, we get that excess.
So
So
let
how
me
much,
clarify.
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
so there's no fouling in Imperial Valley,
Okay.
to be
All right.
clear about
All right,
that.
okay.
There's improved conservation practices on farm that we funded, and that conserved water from better ag practices gets us 200,000 acre feet of water a year from the Imperial Valley.
Okay.
The lining of the canals, so you don't have the seepage that used to occur, creates 80,000 acre feet of water a year to the Water Authority.
So do you know out of that 69%, how much of that is actually taken from the Colorado in addition, I guess, I'm trying to figure out how much through savings of that 69% is maybe 10 or 15% of that water is, I guess, we extract because we're saving that water and it's not being seeped away. How does that break out?
Yeah, that was the 200,000 is the conserved ag practices, so 80,000 is from the canal linings. But yes, all of that water is conserved, so either by the canal lining and
Okay.
capturing that seepage, or the ag practices that result in that
Okay.
conserved water that comes to San
So
Diego.
out of that 69%, how much is that, is it 50%, so then we're only taking
Yeah.
50% out of the river itself, and the other 19%, I'm just trying to figure out how much that saving gets us, and how reliable, trying to figure out how reliable we are on just a river that's in the Colorado River itself without those savings.
Yeah, of that amount, 50% is conserved.
So 50%, okay.
Yeah.
So 50% is conserved, so half of 69% is what you're telling me. Okay, so half of that's conserved and the other half is directly coming from, because we see the pictures of the, whatever, like Powell and like Meade and things like that are record lows, and so
Yes.
just trying to get that information. Let's see, anybody online? I don't see any questions from anybody else.
Chairman, let me just clarify, because our demands are at the level that they're at, we're taking very little water from Metropolitan, and as you saw from those pie charts, our 2021, we have, was like 50,000 acre feet coming from Metropolitan. So I want to go back and clarify, the water we take that's Colorado River water is almost essentially all our water. It's not through Metropolitan.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, but there's a lot of numbers floating out here. I'm gonna have to get a little more
Happy to
in-depth.
sit down and
Okay.
we'll talk you through
Even though
it.
I'm on the water board, I'm a non-voting member and still catching up on some of this stuff, but I appreciate the input, and thanks for the update. This is a question that's on a lot of people's minds throughout the county, and thanks for being here today, and I'm sure anybody can follow up with the San Diego County Water Authority or Sandy or Kelly and get any other questions answered. So thanks for being here. Oh, yes. I didn't see you.
Andy Vanderlaan.
Yeah, Andy, okay, go ahead.
Good morning. Sandy, a great presentation. I really appreciate the detail and all that you've done for our storage and conservation. And I know this is not in your wheelhouse, but I ask the general question is, throughout all this discussion of water, no water, storage, conservation, all that, has there been any discussion about reducing the demand, such as moratorium on housing and things like that? We keep building, we don't seem to be adding more water, so at some point the tap's gonna run dry, I think. So I know it's on your, once again, not your wheelhouse, but is there any focus or discussion at all on the demand side?
So that's a great question.
Okay.
Part of the 2018 conservation legislation developed those water shortage contingency plans that I mentioned. And as you go through, the more serious the drought gets, you can move through systematically through those plans. And a lot of those levels outlined in the plans do call for things such as building moratorium if it gets to a severe enough place. So again, you're going from level 1 at 10% voluntary, level 2, 20% mandatory, level 3, 30% mandatory. And under those are specific actions that each of the retail agencies can take up to and including those moratoriums.
But what I would just like to add to that is, based on the planning and investments that have been made, we are not at that point, and we have sufficient supplies. We used the Standag regional numbers for out of all the master plans from the agencies about development, and we plan accordingly. So we have sufficient supply.
I realize that any kind of moratorium in that area would be very controversial, political, but at some point it seems to me, set aside illegal immigration and all of that, and people leaving California, we keep building, keep adding more building, and at some point we may even have a glut of buildings because people are leaving California. So thank you for your insight. I had no idea it was even being looked at all. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Sandy, Kelly, thank you very much for being here today. Appreciate it. Thanks. Okay, we are moving on to, we have any the public comments and related issues? Do we have any public comments today for things not on today's agenda? Or anyone calling in online for non-agenda public items? No?
I received none.
Received none? All right. If we have none, then we'll move on to the consent calendar. We already took on item 5G. Is there anybody wish to pull any items from the consent calendar? We can take them as a whole, otherwise.
5C, I'd like to pull.
Okay, 5C. Any others? Anybody would like to pull? Do you see anybody online? Help me with that, or Tammy?
No.
Okay. Is that you, Tammy? I should be asking you? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, seeing none, I guess we have, is that a motion for the balance then, Barry?
I'll make a motion that we we'll approve the rest of
The balance of the consent,
Yes.
okay, excluding
consent calendar.
5C and G. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Tammy, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanderland?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson? Commissioner Cates?
Yes.
Commissioner McNamara is absent. Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis?
Aye.
Commissioner Salas?
Yes.
Alternate Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
So you have 8 in favor and 0 opposed with 1 absent.
Okay, thank you very much. 5C, Barry, what did you want to, do you have a question on that, or?
Yes, I do. Just looking over the overall budget, Keenan, it seems razor thin. I was just wondering, do we have any, I may have asked this before, reserves. What do we have in reserves? And is there anything we can do to maybe increase our reserves at some point for emergencies, rainy day funds, so forth?
Commissioner Willis, we do have reserves. In fact, they're healthy. And for the benefit of the public, if one were to look at the bottom of page 28 of the agenda packet, which follows our breakdown of actuals through March 31st, you'll see where we at least began the fiscal year with about $900,000 in unrestricted, unassigned reserves. We anticipate that amount will drop a little bit to about 890, but still well above our policy requirement of having a third of reserves available relative to our budget.
Where's the line item on that?
So if you proceed to page 28 of the,
Yeah, just looking for.
it's in a greenish hue at the very bottom under fund balance, and all of our fund balance is unrestricted. And perhaps Commissioner Willis, when we get to the proposed budget for next fiscal year, we can I can dive into our thoughts because we are thinking about how to improve our fund balance going forward, and I can address some of those comments then.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. One thing I forgot to do is I see if there's any public comment on the rest of the agenda, the consent calendar. Was there any,
Oh, wait, I have not received any.
since we already voted on it? All right, thank you very much. Good thing. Do we have any comments on 5C at all from the public?
Yeah, since
Oh, okay. Sure.
Commissioner Willis pulled this, I just have a quick question. I was going to save it for the budget, but office postage and county mail service, what's the difference?
So office.
Difference in operation.
Yeah,
not
office
dollars.
postage is literally staff buying stamps, just as Jane and John Doe do for items that require a more immediate mail out. And then every week, we pay for it, but every week the county mail services comes by our office and they charge us for that experience as well as whatever the volume is that we're processing through County Mail Center. That's the distinction.
What's their overhead? I'm just trying to determine, and I'll bring it up under the budget, as to whether or not it'd be more cost effective to buy, to buy your own, your own machine and run it through.
Yeah, well, just when we get big mail outs, that's where the value comes in, right? So for example, when we did the Julian mail out, we couldn't do that in-house. So having the contract in place for them to come in and provide that service is a big help. And perhaps I can think about it and offer up an additional thought when we get to the next year's budget.
Okay, if we have no other comments, is there a motion for 5C?
I will make the
All
motion.
right, Commissioner Willis with a motion, second by Commissioner McKenzie. Tammy, could you please call a vote, please? A roll call.
Commissioner Salas,
Yes.
Commissioner Willis,
Aye.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner McNamara is absent. Commissioner Kate,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderland,
Yes.
Commissioner Desmond,
Yes.
alternate Commissioner Becker.
Yes.
So 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 absent, the motion passes.
All right, thank you very much. Next on our items are public hearings. So we've got 2 public hearings, items 6A and 6B. And so before we get started, do any commissioners have any ex parte communications that they need to disclose on item 6A, which is a proposed Ramona Municipal Water District reorganization? Do we have anybody who wants to make any ex parte communication or had any? Hearing none. With that, Keen, you want to kick us off for item 6A?
I will by passing the item over to Carol Hieronyman, who's been our project manager. Carol.
Good morning, everybody. So Carol Hieronyman, analyst here with San Diego LAFCO. Today I'm going over agenda item 6A, which is a proposal we received from the Ramona Municipal Water District. It has formal support from the San Diego County Fire Protection District, and it seeks LAFCO's approval today to legally transfer its fire protection and emergency medical service responsibilities within the Ramona region from Ramona Municipal Water District to the San Diego County Fire Protection District. So as detailed in the agenda report, the proposal necessitates 2 concurrent actions by the Commission. One is to divest Ramona Municipal Water District of its fire protection and emergency medical service responsibilities within its jurisdictional boundary, and secondly, to annex these same lands to the San Diego County Fire Protection District. So I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation, which is up on the screen if you can direct your attention to it. So as you'll see on the screen, there is a map of Ramona Municipal Water District's jurisdictional boundary, which we estimate to span up to nearly 75 square miles. We also estimate the resident population at 37,357, and they have a total of 21,311 registered voters, which most reside in either the communities of Ramona or San Diego Country Estates. Now, within this boundary, LAFCO currently tasks Ramona Municipal Water District with 5 distinct municipal functions. 1 being water, 2nd, wastewater, 3rd, recycled water, 4th, parks and recreation, and last but not least, integrated fire protection and emergency medical. Next slide, please. So now up on the screen is a second map which shows Ramona Municipal Water District's boundary and as it relates to the San Diego County Fire Protection District's boundary. And as you can see, they largely border one another. Now, as for the proposal itself, the idea of a fire transfer actually originated as a recommendation which was separately adopted by this commission in response to a recently completed LAFCO municipal service review on the Ramona region. Hence why Ramona Municipal Water District has asked for and has received a fee waiver to bring this application forward. Next slide. So the application includes a handful of terms that were requested by Ramona Municipal Water District, and they have been negotiated with the San Diego County Fire Protection District and include but are not limited to the terms and conditions you see here on the screen. And they are marked by the San Diego County Fire Protection District agreeing to keep all three Ramona Municipal Water District fire stations operating year-round. So that's Fire Station 80, 81, and 82. The Fire Protection District has also agreed to add a third ambulance to this rotation. Now, the agencies have also agreed to a property tax exchange where Ramona Municipal Water District will transfer to San Diego County Fire Protection District $1.8 million in property-based tax collection plus 4.5% of any annual growth going forward. Excuse me. Now, as for staff's analysis, all the indicators that went into the earlier and referenced municipal service review recommendation have been held under close review, and this report attests that the proposal is justified under both adopted policies and statute. Therefore, it is staff's recommendation that the commission approves this proposal with a small modification involving the annexation component to exclude the approximate 3 acres of Ramona Municipal Water District's boundary that just so happens to lie within the city of Poway and houses a Ramona Municipal Water District pump station. Now, staff's recommendation also includes a conforming sphere amendment for the San Diego County Fire Protection District, as well as all the conditions that have been requested by Ramona Municipal Water District and negotiated with the FPD. LAFCO's own standard conditions, which mostly involve technical issues, are also part of this recommendation. Now, before I conclude my presentation with you today, I would like to make a couple notes. One being that should the commission approve this item today, protest hearings would apply. And as allowed under both policy and statute, it is further recommended that these be delegated to the executive officer. We have also made a couple of revisions to the draft resolution as of last Friday. So these were done to just further drill down on the negotiated terms between the subject agencies and to help smooth out any technicalities surrounding the transfer itself. Now, I am available should you have any questions on the proposal item, and we also do have a few representatives from the subject agencies present at this meeting to help address any questions you might have. Other than that, thank you so much for your time. This concludes my presentation.
All right. Caroline. Well, Caroline, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We have a couple of public speakers on this item. We can go to the public speakers first, and then I'll go to the commissioners if they have any questions or comments. First of all, we have Mr. Dan Summers. Dan, if you want to come up, and then followed by Paula De Souza.
Chair, do you want me here?
Yes, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
And then just, if you touch the button to make sure that it's illuminated in blue, if not already.
The bottom of the mic.
I got blue. Good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is Dan Summers. I'm from the Ramona Community Planning Group. I rise in support of the reorganization. The Water District came to our planning group and made a presentation regarding the future fiscal impact of fire and EMS on the discretionary fund which pays for them. The natural course is that fire and EMS increases its budget every year and takes more out of that discretionary fund. Because of station maintenance and apparatus replacement, equipment replacement, and benefits for employees, that piece of the discretionary fund grows every year. And it threatens all the other projects that come out of the discretionary fund that benefit the community of Ramona, like Park and Recreation and a number of other ones. So the issue that was made to the planning group by the Water District is that in the future, fire and EMS will represent all of that discretionary fund, and they have to do something to save all the other programs that are paid for by the discretionary fund. It is a fiscal necessity, and it's really not an option. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Do we have any, I don't know, Chief Meacham, do you have any comment on that, your clarification? That was a curveball to me.
This is good.
Oh, this is good, okay.
Hi, good morning, Chair Desmond and Commissioners. County Fire also stands here in strong support of the action in front of you today. We have had, as CAL FIRE, nearly a 30-year relationship with Ramona, and President Hickle's here today. We've had a really collaborative process as we've gone through discussing the transfer of services. The County Board of Supervisors, which serves as the Board of Directors for the Fire Protection District, also voted 5-0 in support of this matter. And I think it was really fundamentally two things. This puts fire and EMS more in line with an agency that is focused on fire and EMS and returns the primary focus of the water district to water and sewer. But as Dan mentioned, it's also a financial, I think, in the long-term interest for the water district, and President Hickle is here and can speak to that, but their ability to continue to put infrastructure or spend funds on the infrastructure where they would not be able necessarily to increase the level of fire protection services. Through this, the county has already increased staffing in Ramona to our county staffing, 3 people per fire engine, and we are moving forward as quickly as we can to add the 3rd paramedic ambulance. So with that, I'll certainly be here and available to answer any questions.
Can you address anything to this discretionary fund, I guess, that was brought up?
So Ramona receives a percentage of the property tax to fund all of their services. As we know, the cost of employees, public safety employees, specifically retirement and healthcare, are going to continue to increase year over year, along with the addition of staffing for the engines and the 3rd paramedic ambulance. The water district, to a certain extent, is capped, and their ability is really to raise water rates. We're really looking, and I want to make sure for President Hickle that I'm addressing this. They were looking at a situation where they were going to have to continue to raise water rates or not take on projects related to water to continue to allocate those funds to fire.
Okay, well, it seems that that's really not today's agenda item, I guess, but we do want to make sure, and I'm sure the county won't, we're not going to let Ramona go by the wayside and you know, take care of the services and things like that they need. I don't know, the President, you want to speak real quick to that?
Sure, we're on the speaker, so.
Yeah.
Okay, oh, is this Paula?
Yeah, Paula and President Hickle.
Okay,
We were gonna come up.
okay. I mean, this is a good thing we're doing today. I just want to make sure that we aren't making waves otherwise. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chair Desmond and Commissioners. I'm Paula D'Souza. I'm a partner with Best and Krieger, and I'm here on behalf of Ramona Municipal Water District. And to my left is President Hickle of the Ramona Municipal Water District Board. He will have a few remarks for this item after I conclude my few remarks. I really am here just to make myself available if there are any questions by either LAFCO staff or the commissioners. And I really want to express my appreciation to San Diego County Fire Protection District staff and council for their collaboration and cooperation in getting this moved forward. It's been a really great process, and I also want to express my appreciation and to LAFCO staff and council for their patience with us with last minute changes to resolutions to really memorialize the deal, the cooperative negotiation that has taken place with County Fire. So and with that, I'm nothing else to add.
All right, President Hickle.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. First of all, thanks, Carol Ann, for the recommendation from the LAFCO Commission. It really was the diving board for us to jump off into this process and to work with the County Fire Protection District. Just for your Commission's information, we, as a water board and being collaborative in our community, we reached out to not just the Community Planning District or Community Planning Group. We also reached out to the school board. We reached out to the Chamber of Commerce. We presented each leadership organization in our community this plan, and we received unanimous and very positive support from the community for doing this. Regarding the discretionary funds, just to give you some background, in 1991, and I'm relying on my memory, so don't quote me, but there is a fire protection tax that goes against the property tax. That percentage of the property tax does not have an increase, has not had an increase since 1991. So subsequently, as the cost of providing fire services, unless we pass a new tax increase, which was unlikely, and several bond issues and several tax increase issues in the community have failed repeatedly in our community. So we didn't feel like raising the taxes on the property owners was going to be an effective use of money trying to get that through the ballot. But as a result, because this tax does not have an escalation in it at all, except for the values of the homes that are taxed, we have subsequently run short of money to fund the fire and EMS services every year relative for that tax. And then so we receive some discretionary funds each year to allocate as projects come up in the board, and those discretionary funds have increasingly, that's their only additional source of revenue for the district. So those discretionary funds have been increasingly and more proportionately given to fire and EMS services to the point where they consume over 50% of the discretionary funds. And as Carolyn indicated, we have 5 major areas where we're supposed to support. And so being proactive, we reached out to the county and we looked at a variety of different options, and we reached out to the county and asked them if they would be interested in taking this. And through the negotiations and with Jeff Collins and Chief Meacham, I can't commend them enough. They're very much community servants, and as we are, volunteers, and they've just been excellent through the process. And so I thank you very much for the collaboration. And it is a fair split, I think, of the economics, as well as enabling us to continue to do the services that are put upon us, or that we're duty bound to do for parks and recreation, sewer, and water. So we received unanimous support, and I thank you for the
I just want to ask really quick, was your board unanimous on the vote?
Yes, our board is unanimous on the vote as well.
So today before us, though, the discretionary funds are not before us today, but it is a concern. But I do think that residents of Ramona are getting a good deal here, especially with the fire services and things like that. And you had a great voluntary group before, but if you can't raise funds to give them, provide them the tools that they need, Cal Fire is going to be coming in and doing that. And quite frankly, the rest of the county is going to be paying for it. So it's kind of how that's going to work. But I think it's a good deal. And do we have any other questions, Commissioner Drake? Do you have a question, then Commissioner McKenzie?
Just an observation. We don't get a chance to really review these kinds of things and make modifications over time. It's a long-term play. And one of the things I'm concerned about is this enough? I mean, the Ramona Sentinel complained bitterly about the response times, and to my knowledge, you have no nighttime trauma care at all in Ramona. You have daytime care from Palomar Health. You have a couple of other healthcare agencies, but there's no trauma care at night. And Ramona and all of its roads can be pretty seriously impacted by trauma. And I'm worried about how long it takes to get to either to Sharp Healthcare or Palomar. And the response times have got to be pretty big. Is there any better consequence for what we can do here?
Chief Meacham to the rescue.
Chief Meacham, yes, sir.
If the commission's good, I'll stay up here with President Hinkle. So the challenge we have in Ramona, yes, with the roads, but we have probably one of the best trauma care systems in the country here in San Diego, and we fly a lot of people, not just out of Ramona, backcountry. One of the things we have identified, though, is there's a critical need for a third ambulance in Ramona. Unfortunately, the Water District, as part of our discussions, ordered the ambulance. But with supply chain issues, we are 10 to 12 months away from physically receiving that vehicle. So we are slowly adding the staffing in the hopes when that vehicle gets here, we'll be able to staff it. We do move around ambulances, and we have must cover, but it is the farther east you go, the less access there is to healthcare, and the more folks we're flying to the trauma centers, which are all here in the metropolitan area.
Do you have enough helicopters?
We do. We have four air ambulances, dedicated air ambulances that serve the county because of the volume. We're one of the most resource-intensive areas with air medical.
I just hope we're doing enough in this change. I agree with it.
All right. Commissioner McKenzie.
Yes, out of your, how much, what is Ramona Water District, what are you paying now, CAL FIRE now for their service on an annual basis?
On an annual basis, I think, again, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the contract is about anywhere from $5 to $6 million.
So you're only.
But there's, the 1.8 is just the discretionary funds. There's also the fire tax, as well as the building fund, as well as the ambulance transportation charges. There's a lot of revenue sources that go into that. That are all transferred over to the county.
Okay. Can you explain again what the discretionary fund, where do those dollars come from?
Go ahead.
Okay, so let me go through the history of Ramona. So Ramona used to have a fire. Yeah. I'll get this very quick. I'm a taxi department.
I haven't heard of that.
Ramona had a fire protection district that in the early 1980s was subsequently transferred through a LAFCO action to the Ramona Municipal Water District. Those boundaries were then made coterminous. So Ramona receives, the water district receives 13.7% of the 1% baseline property tax. And that funds, and those are non-restricted funds. Specific to fire, there's two restricted funds that we receive. There's a dedicated benefit assessment fee, which was passed by the voters, which we refer to as the EDU charge. And then we have the revenue from ambulance transports. The EDU fee, when it was passed by the voters, did not have an escalator, and that's what President Hickle was referring to. That fee has stayed the same since it was passed. Ambulance transport revenue, we see going up a little bit every year, but more and more of Ramona's property tax was having to be dedicated to fire and not their other functions. And so the agreement that we reached is essentially Ramona, because they did receive property tax allocation as part of the fire district. So we essentially split the property tax a third, a third, and a third. So Ramona is going to transfer 4.5% for continuing operations of fire, and then the water district will leave 9.2% discretionary funds for them to continue. And they also have a host of restricted funds from sewer and water and different projects on the other side of the house.
Okay, I'm trying to keep us on topic. Go ahead.
Yes, but I think this is important because this does go to the financial aspects of it. I think that instead of using the term discretionary funds, it would be restricted versus unrestricted revenue. Property taxes are generally, unless they're associated with a special tax or special benefit fee, are unrestricted revenues to water agencies, as opposed to rate revenues, which are restricted to providing the services.
This sounds like water. So we probably need another presentation to come back on those types of questions. But before us today is basically, the divestiture of the fire protection and emergency medical services functions, the concurrent annexation to the San Diego Fire Protection District. So
I make a motion we go with staff recommendation.
Thank you. I think Keen actually has to. There was an agreed to change to the resolution. Keen, do you want to read that into the? I'm sorry.
As Paula had mentioned, the two agencies were doing negotiations up until this morning, and our resolution that we provided to the commission as a supplement and posted captures everything but one item. And so I want to just put into the record, we are making a change to the resolution that you would be considering as part of our recommendation that currently is identified as 7H as in Howard, which is a term for the two agencies, MWD and the County Fire Protection District, to provide LAFCO a joint letter agreeing that should any future reorganization occur down the path, that the agencies would work in good faith in transferring back any appropriate fire-related infrastructure to the MWD or its successor. So that provision is going to be moved from essentially a whereas in the resolution to a condition that would need to be satisfied within 1 year of today's approval, unless a time extension is granted. And I see Paula shaking her head, and maybe if Mr. Collins provides us some confirmation, I think we've got it.
And next time this comes, can we have that in front of the commissioner so we can see it instead of just being read to us?
Yes.
Thank you.
That was my fault.
Okay. But everybody's in agreement on this?
Yes.
I've seen heads nodding. Okay.
Yes.
So there.
So I'll redo the motion that included that condition.
Okay.
Second.
All right, thank you, Andy, for that second. Do we have any other commissioner comments or questions?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Andy.
Sure.
You just seconded it, but go ahead.
I know, just a second, so I'm gonna watch out I started talking. Just a quick evolution of the whole process. Several years ago, in fact, when I came to this county in the fire service, 1976, the contract with CDF, then which included fire only, was canceled by the Board of Supervisors. So it reverted everything back to volunteer or nothing. So several years down the road, when we used to have to apply for penny before the Board of Supervisors, then Commissioners Bill Horn and Diane Jacob set out on a mission to put together a county-wide fire protection district. So all through many iterations and so on, it was put in place. The fire chiefs agreed on it. We would start with volunteer areas and the fire districts, and it was a limited participation to begin with, but now just about every, I think we're going to maybe the last independent or solely of fire protection and emergency medical being provided. So this kind of closes the loop, but certainly there'll be other adage there. And so it's gone from zero funding to whatever it is now at several $1 million. And I commend all those that were involved in this, and particularly now Chief Machem and the way that they're negotiating this and bringing it all together. My point for bringing this up is that, one, that LAFCO's been involved in the fire and emergency medical issues for many years, and this is a great success. And I'd like to throw the spotlight on something that's mentioned later on in our agenda, and that is doing an MSR on the San Diego Water Authority. So I think there may be a similar opportunity with the water agencies to look at consolidations, and we have one proposal now. It's been before the commission, will be up for vote soon. So I think this could turn out to be a very successful area as well. I commend the Water Authority for all that they're doing as well, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andy. If we have no other commissioner comments, we have a motion and a second. Tammy, could you call the roll, please?
Yes. Commissioner Willis?
Aye.
Commissioner Salas?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner McNamara is absent. Commissioner Kate? Commissioner Kate? Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderlyn?
Yes.
Commissioner Desmond?
Yes, and did you get Commissioner Kate? He kind of
Flashed on the screen.
came in the last second with a yes.
Yes.
Okay, got it, okay.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
So we have 8 in favor, 0 opposed.
All right, great, well, thank you.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much, everyone, on that item, and we'll move forward. 6B is our next item, and this one also, if any commissioner has any ex parte communications on 6B, which is a proposed final work plan and budget for 2022-2023. Seeing none, hearing none? No? Okay, Keen, do you want to kick us off again here?
I will kick us off and I'll do the presentation. So before the commission, we have a twofer, which is related to the last step in game planning for the upcoming fiscal year. So commission, you have a proposed final work plan from staff, as well as a proposed final budget to fund those related activities. You will all hopefully recall that back in March, we brought you draft versions of these documents that you subsequently debated and made some changes, approved, and then you sent staff on its way to initiate a formal comment and review, or review and comment period, a process that included us sending notices to all 77 of our funding agencies, right? You have the county, the cities, and the independent special districts. We also made presentations at our cities and special district advisory committee committees. So based on that experience and upon some further reflection, your staff now comes back with final versions of these documents for your approval. Documents that are largely, but not entirely, but largely intact from the drafts that you saw just a few months ago. So what I thought I would do is just touch upon some of the key takeaways for both the work plan and the budget, and then I will do my best to highlight some of the changes that we've made over the last 60 days or so. So, starting with the work plan. And let me see here. We could actually go ahead for the benefit of the visual, put up, I think it's the second PowerPoint. One more. There we go. Thank you, sir. So, with respect to the work plan, it continues to outline 30 projects in priority order, right? And by way of practice over the last several years, we divide those priorities into a first tier, our top 10. Those are our highest priorities. And then we have a second tier, our moderate priority projects. And then the third, lower priorities, things that are more administrative in nature. But nevertheless, in terms of what you saw in March versus what you saw today, there are no changes to either the top tier or the lower tier, right? Those remain unchanged. So with respect to the top 10, we are continuing to recommend that we focus our attention next year on municipal service reviews along the 78 corridor, as well as some targeted policy updates. Okay, so no changes with respect to the top 10 projects. Where the changes occur is in that middle ground, that moderate second tier. And in particular, as reflected up on the screen here, we have essentially two trades for you. We'd like to add 2 municipal service reviews, and then we'd like to keep 30, since it's a nice round number, and take out 2 projects at the same time. So with respect to what we're suggesting you add, as referenced earlier by Commissioner Vanderlyn, we're recommending that we add the start of a municipal service review on the County Water Authority, and by extension, that also means proportionally the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. And we're coming to that recommendation after having thought about it for a while, given, well, it certainly seems timely. We have the drought. We just had a wonderful presentation from Sandy and Kelly about, how that is affecting the entire state and how it differently is affecting San Diego. But then we also have this information that Dr. Hanneman, who has provided LAFCO a great deal of analysis, and it would be a shame to let that analysis go stale as he looked at these 2 related detachments, unrelated but material detachments that involve the Water Authority. So for those reasons, staff believes it would make sense to add that service review in fiscal year 23. The second edition is actually something that we're working on now. We just weren't ready or able to bring it to you before the close of this year, and that is the continued work on a service review for the Escondido region. Despite our best efforts, it's just not ready for prime time. We think it'll be ready for prime time, though, in a few months, but it makes sense to add that to the work plan. What we propose taking out are pertinent but not necessarily time-sensitive projects involving a service review on the Palma Valley region, as well as a legislative proposal that we talked about in January to see if we can make some better communication loops in the service review statute itself. LAFCO thinks it's a good idea, but they themselves have said that's just not on their to-do list in the next fiscal year, so it makes sense for us to take it out of our work plan as well. So those are the key takeaways for the work plan and the changes. A full accounting of the 30 projects is available by taking a look at Exhibit A to Attachment 2. I see Commissioner Drake is studying it as we speak. Thank you, sir. Now let's talk about the budget. So the budget comes back to you too, just about intact, albeit with some changes, in particular with respect to the bottom line, right? What it costs to fund LAFCO. We have added about $25,000 from the budget from the draft version you saw in March to account for some updated estimates, and that means commission. We are recommending a final budget of $2,045,000. That is a overall difference of about 5% from this year, or a little bit more than $100,000. And as you can see up on the screen, what does that $100,000 buy you? Well, actually quite a bit. So It accommodates our first full year being outside of the county operations center in our own private office space. It accommodates what we anticipate will be a 5% cost of living adjustment for all 8 of your budgeted employees. And parenthetically, the commission, by way of policy, just follows what the Board of Supervisors does. And right now, that's where that number 5% comes from, and will be confirmed presumably in the next month or so. And then last but not least, over the last 2 years, the commission has been mindful of its cost impacts to funding agencies. So you've restricted and in some cases outright cut some service and supply accounts as a result of COVID. So what we are asking is that you recharge some of those accounts, like professional services, to help us in our regulatory and planning features. So again, there's $100,000 more from this year that we are asking be added to the budget. I will note that the number would be a lot higher had the commission not at this time last year went forward with their early retirement incentive program. That netted us 2 retirements, and overall is the reason why your labor costs are actually going down 3%. Yes, our overall costs are going up 5%, but it would have been a lot higher had you not taken proactive action last year. So, last but not least, our revenues on the other side of the ledger, they too are going up by an identical amount with an important internal qualification. Because, and this goes to you, Commissioner Willis, you asked about our reserves and our thinking about reserves. We have been slowly trying to get to the point where we are no longer budgeting reserves as offsetting revenues, right? The goal is to true up our operating revenues to match our operating expenses, but we're just not there yet. However, in the spirit of getting there, we are recommending that you reduce the amount of reserves to be used as revenues next year by about 1/3. That means, Commission, we have to make up that 1/3 somewhere. And so the agencies, the county, the cities, and the special districts apportionments at LAFCO are not going up 5%, but they're going up by 6.5%. We made this point very clear to the city managers, county administrator, and the general managers for the special districts. And while they did not clap or say great, they also did not provide us any written opposition, which I will take as a good sign. So with that, we have a final work plan and budget for your consideration today as part of this notice hearing. It could be achieved under one motion as alternative action 1, and staff is ready and hopefully able to answer any questions you may have.
That was a mouthful. So, Commissioner McKenzie?
I have a number of questions.
Move approval.
Yeah, I have a number of questions.
Yeah, we'll get to you, Andy, right after Commissioner McKenzie. We're going to get to her comments first, and we'll come to you. Thank you.
I'll start at the second page and work my way to the first page. On the earnings unit, just a question. On the interest and dividends, who manages those funds?
They are managed by County Treasurer's Office.
Okay, so we have no say as to where, how those funds are invested?
You do not have any say in the mechanics of how they're invested, but you do have say that they are invested by the treasurer.
Okay. And he really thinks that you're still going to get $15,000 considering what the interest rates are this year?
Interest rates are going up, Commissioner McKenzie, so...
Not by much.
True. We decided to leave that number alone, and I agree we probably won't get the 15,000, but it was easier than making a change.
Okay.
How
Okay.
far off are we?
Okay, let's go back to the office postage and the county mail service. Do they charge a flat rate per month, or is it by the piece, or how do they charge? And when we have these mass mailings, as we will for this Ramona, do you live in a mail house to see what what their charge would be?
I'm going to ask Tammy or Erica if they can help me with that question.
When we submitted to, the packages to the county, we would normally see a bill for that. And it's somehow generated in the county overhead costs.
So you have no clue.
No, if you need us to bring that back, I can request that, but it's included in our overhead costs.
Okay, well, I'm gonna make my pitch that I make every year at budget time, is that, LAFCOs are supposed to be independent of the county. And that was legislated, I don't know how many years back. And one of the reasons why, when the county looked like they weren't going to renew our lease, we went out on our own for a building. But we're still tied to the county with a lot of, a lot of projects, a lot of, them doing it. And I'm just concerned about, why not look at taking some of these that we have been doing for the last 30 years with the county and looking at doing it on our own. And for instance, looking at what a mail house would charge. You know that you sent out, I don't know, pick a number, 1,000 pieces that they had to send out, and you know what the bill is that you got back from the last mailing. Well, what would, if you contacted a couple of the mailing houses here, what would it cost? And look at the two, and is there a savings, or are they comparable? I'm just looking at finding ways to pull ourselves away from the county, and then that will go to another comment when we come up with the analyst, is that we need to look at our rules and regulations and policies, because we say, well, we're doing it because that's what the county does. Well, some of the other larger LAFCOs that have their own, their own workforce and aren't relying on the county, they're doing it, a lot of this work on their own. And that's what my question is. And then back to the other question I have, what's the difference between the employee auto and, there's another one here. There's an employee auto and a fleet reimbursement lease, and there's another one. There's three vehicles. No, that's vehicle maintenance. That's a good deal.
So Commissioner McKenzie, to your question about the distinctions made out in our budget line item, the employee auto line is for all employee and commissioners, because for IRS purposes, you are employees. Any of your mileage gets charged to that account. There's also an executive car allowance that gets applied to that account. The vehicle lease is our county assigned car that staff takes to meetings and the like.
Okay.
So I think, well, Commissioner, pretty much, the county's not the big bad person, but anyway, but if there's ways of doing things more effectively, I think, maybe each time they come before us, maybe there's a certain areas they concentrate on, and maybe look at is it cheaper to do it in-house or out-of-house, or farm it out? I think that's always a good idea every time for any entity to take a look at that, and whether it's mailing or your other costs, I think, I pretty much trust Keenan's staff. They're doing those things, and hopefully they're getting the best bang for the buck. But I think it's a point well taken that we should be doing that just about every time we look at the budget.
Just to confirm, Tammy, are you going to see if there is a more bulk rate that's cheaper? Is that where we left it?
Yes, I will check it.
I think
Okay, great.
I think that's at the
Thank you.
discretion of the commission if they want staff to look at and do any kind of an analysis. You've got a big one coming up now. And I think there's several, well-known mailing houses in the county.
Well, if you want to make that as part of direction in the motion, I think we could do that. I think there's probably lots of different things, but okay.
Now, the only other thing
Sure.
is, could we get a copy of what rule number 4 is? And I wouldn't mind getting a copy of what rule number 1, 2, and 3 are.
There's lots of rules.
Certainly. They are available online, but nevertheless, we will email them directly to the commission. That is a good suggestion.
I think Andy had an original
Yeah,
motion.
Andy you have a question, Andy, or a comment? Commissioner Vanderland?
You're muted, Andy.
Andy, we can't hear you.
Let's take them off.
What's his motion? His motion was to,
Did he?
I didn't hear a
He didn't
motion.
make
I just heard, I didn't hear a motion from him. While we're waiting on Andy, I don't see any other speakers here. Do we have any speakers from the public on this item?
Do you have any comments?
I have not received any speaker
No.
slips.
I'll just make Andy.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, we got you. Thank you.
Okay, you can hear me. I move to approve this item.
All right, do you have a motion?
Now, were you, wait a minute, are you going to include the review for mass mailings, cost analysis?
Andy, are you willing to accept a friendly amendment to include cost analysis on the mailings?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
and I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. I just have a quick comment. And I know we've got I know the new item on the MSR for the Water Authority is part of the work plan. I just want to make sure, we've also got a big item coming up with the Water Authority and detachment, and I want to make sure that those are two separate entities, and maybe we don't even start the MSR until after that detachment decision has been made. I just don't want to be muddying the waters between those two very large decisions that's coming before this board. So I just want to make sure we're not, we keep those two things separate, as separate as we can.
Staff can confirm they are legally separate activities, certainly.
Okay, can we start one after not do the MSR until after we do the decision on the, we'll come back I'd like to see that happen, just if we could. Not that it's going to change anything, but I would think that would be better, just to start the MSR after the decision on detachment.
Mr. Chair, I would suggest that we have put on the July meeting agenda and discuss it in more detail then.
There's no
Mr. Wayne Carter.
Well, there's no July, and I really don't want to get into a detachment discussion yet.
So, staff-
I'm talking about the MSR and the timing of the MSR is all.
But I understand, just a suggestion.
Okay.
I understand the preference from the chair, and we will proceed accordingly.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion and a second for this is 6B. Do we have a roll call, Tammy?
Yes. Commissioner Vanderland?
Yes?
Commissioner Cates? Commissioner McNamara is absent. Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis?
Aye.
Commissioner Salas?
Yes?
Commissioner Anderson? Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
So have 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 absent. The motion passes.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to the business calendar now. This is item 7A, B, C, and D. 4 business items. Keen, do you have any 7A? Do you want to start us off?
Yes, thank you so much. So, short and sweet, you have a clean audit for the most recent completed fiscal year before you, 2021. I'm going to leave it at that. I'd be happy to take any questions, but this is under policy for you to formally receive and file. But again, available for questions. And thank you, Erica Blum, in our virtual setting for her great work in getting this audit to you.
What is the action? What are you asking for? It says action.
To formally receive and file per policy.
Motion?
I'll make that motion.
All right, motion by Commissioner Willis. I'll
Second.
All right, we have a second by Commissioner Vanderland. So, any other questions, comments? Commissioner Drake?
Yeah, I was trying to locate it, but somewhere here was a comment that we did not have a completed administrative document or some other guidance documents to how we actually run LAFCO. And whether or not it was actually inherited from the county or inherited from LAFCO.
What's our situation
So Commissioner Drake is, and I apologize, I should have highlighted this. So in the management letter that accompanies our outside audit, they note that a prior recommendation remains outstanding, and that is for LAFCO to establish its own standalone fraud prevention policies. That's certainly something on our to-do list. However, because we are set up so closely with the county and the COVID restrictions kind of realigned their normal personnel assigned to us through the auditor's office, it's just not something we've been able to tackle, but it is on our mind. And again, it's a merited process to make sure that irrespective of what the county's policies are, that LAFCO has its own fraud prevention manual.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we vote? Do we need to vote?
Yep.
All right. Damn it, I forgot if we did or not. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Commissioner Salas,
Yes.
Commissioner Willis,
Aye.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner McNamara is absent, Commissioner Kate,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderlin,
Yes.
Commissioner Desmond,
Yes.
Alternate Commissioner Becker.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 absent. The motion passes.
All right, great. 7B, this is the proposed job classification changes for the local government analyst series. So, Keen, you want to
Thank
tell
you,
us about
Chair.
that?
So for those commissioners who were here with us about 3 years ago, we brought you the first of 2 suggested revisions that were developed in concert with County Human Resources. The first set of revisions were approved back in June 2020 and dealt with administrative support positions. Well, COVID kind of threw us off our game, so now I'm coming back 2 years later with the second part of the recommendations, and this is specific to your analyst series job descriptions. I'll defer to the staff report for the details, but I want to emphasize this is all about making more clear and more notional the distinctions between analysts 1, 2, and 3, liberalizing some of the job experience requirements, and making it that much more easier for staff, your management to recruit and retain good employees. There are no changes to the salary band. This is all about the job descriptions themselves. So I'd be happy to go into details, but I will defer to the report again for details, but we are looking for approval of action item or alternative action 1.
Motion question? Commissioner McKenzie.
Yes, going back to basically Keen's comment on differentiating between LAFCO and the county. I'm concerned about, on the definition, starting on page 213, and it's in there for all 3, the last sentence of that paragraph says, similar to the County of San Diego's Administrative Analyst 3 position. Well, to go figure out what that policy is, if anybody has tried to find the policies for the county, it's not a quick 3-minute Google search. This indicates that we are still tied to the county, and I would like that particular phrase deleted from all 3 of them. That we should have our own policy and basically stand on our own, as we did with our CEO's salary. We really looked at what the other EOs are making within, he's going to correct me now, within the area, rather than tying it to the planning director, and there's one other top management that his salary is tied to his block.
I don't know, can we do that today? Because it seems like that would have to be something later, but go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, and Commissioner McKenzie, the comment is well taken. The reason why we have added that explicit statement to all 3 analyst positions, and in particular, the statement that this position is intended to be a comparison to the county admin 1, 2, 3, that's for the benefit of syncing assigned benefit categories. And that becomes an issue for us because even though I hear you, we're our own employees and we're our own agency, we do get benefits from the county or through the county. And I can assure you it becomes a lot easier if we have some explicit statement in our policies for the people at county HR to say, yes, this category applies because their comparison is Administrative Analyst 1. What we could do with the commission's comfort level is kind of explore how to extract that statement without becoming problematic for county HR.
Okay, if we could do that and/or add what the policy is for each one of those as, I don't know, somewhere as an addendum or just a long paragraph, such as similar to the county San Diego's administrative analyst position 3, which states, and you got another 2 pages of comment.
We can do that. We could do that.
As part of the amendment, okay. All right, well, that would be in the future. So what's before us today is going to pretty much stay, but you're looking to have that come back or possibly next time.
I could come back and be cleaner.
Okay. Well, the thing is, I guess the only pushback I have is if it's a better system to kind of hold hands with the county and it's working out and it's more efficient and cheaper than being our own separate entity, I don't want to go off that ledge. So I think I kind of trust you, basically have to, the team to be doing it the most efficient way he can with the county or without it, and as he sees fit. So I don't want to, it seems like we're getting too far in the weeds on some of this stuff, but you're right, if they're going to reference something, at least you should be able to find it and see it.
Right, and
Yeah.
I agree, but because we are tied to the county with the money, the benefits, and the payroll. So there is a umbilical cord there that's probably never going to be completely severed, but where it can, I feel strongly that it should be.
Okay.
Because we are supposed to be an independent.
Okay. Wow.
So,
Right.
but I do have a question probably of council on, for instance, on page 215, where it says that reasonable accommodations may be made to enable qualified individuals with disabilities. I thought that was a requirement, that you make accommodations, yes? So that's why, or if you can answer.
Holly?
Yes, that, it is on a case-by-case basis about what is reasonable and whether someone qualifies, but assuming they do qualify under FEHA or ADA, then we are required to make reasonable accommodations.
So is may be made, is that the appropriate language? Or shall be made, or should be made?
My preference is to leave it at may, only because it is so situational as to determine what is a reasonable accommodation to balance with the required LAFCO needs. We are required to comply with FEHA and the ADA, and but we can't guarantee that a specific accommodation is required under those. So I prefer the may language.
Thank you.
I just have one question, Keenan. Is the main verbiage is to address the number of years you have to wait to get to the next level?
Not the years, but the local government experience.
Oh, local government experience. All right. I make a motion to go with the staff recommendation. Should we name this the Priscilla Allen Amendment, or?
It very well could be.
Okay. So Priscilla, we appreciate your hard work. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Okay, we have a motion. Is that a second? Commissioner Drake, or you have a question?
Just a brief question.
Okay.
I want to make sure I understand the executive officer's answer. Are we actually going to be looking for a specific reference in the county documentation base, like page number and paragraph to actually make this reference?
Well, probably where they put it in their ordinance system and just leave it there.
All right.
Or if it's put it at the end of an agenda item. If we're going to reference it, put it at the end of agenda item, whatever that paragraph is or whatever it is. As long as it's not a book, I think that's, if we're going to use definitions and make it easier for the commissioners to find it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and for the employee to understand what
Sure.
it is without having to go through it. Before we take a vote, I do have one other comment. and that has to be on analyst, let's say, 1. Have you thought about, this requires a 4-year degree. Have you thought about also, maybe allowing for just an associate degree or say a certificate? Palomar has certificates in accounting and other disciplines, which means you take the whole core, but you don't take all the other foo-foo classes to get the BA.
So I thought about that. The foo-foo has value, though, in terms of rounding out the experiences. So my suggestion would be to keep it as is. But point taken.
Do we have any problem hiring analyst number one? I don't know. With the 4-year degree, maybe job experience or whatever. I mean, again, this is on this guy to do the right thing with that. Okay. All right.
Did we have a second?
I got a motion from
me.
From you. I'll second the motion. Okay, to accept the staff's recommendation. Okay. And then you got work to do for next year. Next time this comes forward. So can we have a roll call, please, Tammy?
Yes. Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Kate? Commissioner Vanderline?
Yes.
Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
Commissioner Salas?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis?
Aye.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Aye.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
So have 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 absent. The motion passes.
All right, thank you, everyone. 7C, this is a grant update, Sustainable Agricultural Lands Conservation Planning Grant. So we have an update from that.
We do. I'm going to pass this over to Priscilla Allen Mumpower, and I'll come back to that last part of your EO report.
I've now graduated to Mumpower instead of Allen.
Is there going to be enough room on your,
I know. My last name was so short, now it's long. But yes, thank you, Commissioners. Before the Commission today is a report and update on its first year activities as part of the Sustainable Agricultural Lands Conservation Grant as awardee and grant manager. And the purpose of this grant is to identify and track agricultural lands within San Diego County. This check-in is provided in our adopted work plan and is an opportunity for the Commission to ask questions or provide related feedback as we do extend activities into our second year. You'll recall in August of 2020, LAFCO as lead applicant in collaboration with the RCD of Greater San Diego County did submit an application under SALC to identify and track agricultural uses as well as market trends within San Diego County. We were then subsequently awarded the full amount in $250,000 in April of 2021, and then we got to work in June of 2021, so shortly after. So what have we accomplished to date? Quite a bit. So we have established key partnerships with 4 local organizations, and those being Mission RCD, San Diego State University, Food Shed, Community Health Improvement Partners, also known as CHIP. We've also started work on 4 of the 5 approved grant tasks and are going to be shown up on the screen. And so the second task, mapping and greenhouse gas analysis, has been the focal point of most of the work to date, headlined by the RCD of Greater San Diego as well as SDSU, developing maps to illustrate the historic, current, and potential agricultural lands within San Diego County. As of late, we've also started to focus more on the 4th task, that being collaborative outreach or community outreach. And this includes reaching out to more than 2,000 agricultural producers, and we've reached out to them through producer needs assessments as well as following up with listening sessions, and all of this to kind of help us identify the needs and challenges that are experienced throughout the agricultural community. With respect to the 5th and final task, we do remain on schedule in producing a draft report in fall of 2022 with a final report in spring of 2023. So further details are within the agenda report, and this includes an attachment detailing the work plan and schedule. And then last, before I do conclude my presentation, it's not covered within the agenda report, but we are currently working on a second grant proposal to go further into the weeds on the topic of agricultural sustainability. And if all goes well, we hope to have something agendized for possible action at the next meeting. And so with that, I am available for questions. I also do believe we have Joel Kramer, which is the lead project manager for the RCD of Greater San Diego, available to take questions as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Priscilla.
Chair, I was seeing that it says action, but it doesn't have a recommendation. So it's information. It's just information. So cross out the action.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you. Do you have any commissioner questions or comments online? You did such a great job, Priscilla, that it blew them all away. All
I
right.
could have Priscilla more and more.
Yeah, okay. Well, good. All right, this is, next is item D, this 7D. This is the local agency directory. And actually, there's a beautiful document, lots of information in here. And I just really want to thank Tammy. I guess you put this all together. You did a great job here. Spelled everybody's name right, it looks like. But this is a lot of work and effort, so you probably learned a lot going through all of this. But this is the special districts and also all the local agencies directory for San Diego County. So thanks very much for that. Keith, do you have any?
Well, Tammy,
Tammy,
just
you want to take it
for
over?
the benefit of the record, just a quick overview of what's before the commission.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, Commissioners. This is a brief overall report. The local agency directory was adopted in 2022 to 2023 as part of our work plan. It lists all 103 agencies, which involves the cities and special districts within the San Diego County area they're subject to the Commission's planning and regulatory duties, and identifies current and the council and the staff members. So this is an information item. You will all receive hard copies. And if you have any feedback, please provide.
Outstanding.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
I think it's a great document. It has a lot of information in it. I do have one comment that I would like staff to consider. This is another work plan to be an annual review. As we all know, there are changes made, and by the time this goes to print or is in print, there's changes to be made.
Yeah.
I would strongly suggest that at the next time we look at whether or not it would be more feasible to have this as a 2-year project, with it coming in directly after the first quarter of the year following an election. Because right now, our board members are not correct. Alan Carlisle just retired. So as I said, by the time this goes to a hard print, it needs to be revised. But then my question is staff going to be maintaining this on the website up to date? In other words, will they go in and put in our new board member, change the general manager for Alan Carlisle? Ramona has an interim manager at this point in time. Are those going to be done on a monthly, quarterly basis on the website?
To answer you, Commissioner McKenzie, I did send a form out, and I would have to have them email back to me by May 12th. So if that took action before, it was not updated with me.
I understand
So
that.
I will, we can, if you're suggesting to do it on a yearly basis, a monthly basis, but it does get changed.
So yeah, the web version will get updated, but you're correct. The hard copy, once we hit print, is memorialized.
Yeah.
And we can make that notation on the cover, that an updated version, please refer to the website.
And maybe after this is adopted and you send these out, also then send out that letter that, hey, whenever you have a change in these positions, please let us know so we can update your information on the website. And that usually goes to the board secretary.
Outstanding, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the update, Tammy. Thanks for the great job. A lot of work, effort, always a moving target. Okay, next we're going to go, we don't need an action on this one. The Executive Director's Report. Keen, what do we got?
Just in addition to our analyst Priscilla Allen changing her name by way of a marriage to Mum Power, which I did want to put in the record, we did start our protest hearing for the Fallbrook Public Utility District's activation of certain laden powers, parks, roads, and whatnot. We started that last Tuesday. We purposely continued it for 2 weeks to June 14th to allow anyone who has not yet pulled the trigger on whether they want to submit protests additional time, but we will come back with the results for you to confirm at your next meeting. And that is all.
Beautiful. Okay, do we have any commissioner announcements or reports for future item requests? Or
I do want to review one that we had mentioned before. I'd like to ask Keen, where do we stand with the analysis, Chair Desmond brought this up, the analysis of what the water bills would look at in the detachment for Ramona and Fall. Where do we stand with that?
So that's part of our ad hoc committee's work for the detachments proposal. Adam Wilson, our consultant, has a working group of the ad hoc on that, working on that very topic. So I think we have a meeting telegraphed for later this month where the working group at least will have its thoughts on what are the impacts to the three entities. Not everyone, but City of San Diego, Valley Center, and Poway. Those are our 3 case studies.
Okay.
any other comments? Yeah, Commissioner McKenzie.
I just have one comment that the reports today by our analysts I thought were excellent and were very informative and to the point. So thank you for great information.
Yes, thank you. Anybody online? I don't have that page up here in front of me.
No.
No, well, thank you.
No answer.
Mr. Chair, this is Andy Bannon. Just similar comments to Joe McKenzie, and that is, Keen, you and your staff did a great job, great teamwork, and a very good meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Our next meeting is going to be held on August 1st. So if there's no other business or no other comments, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
God bless you all.
Let's end on that note.
Thank you, Chair.